Hi there, my name is Sam Claydon. I am an indie game developer from the UK. During October, I decided to create a game start to finish and release it. And basically, I picked up one of my old ideas from a previous video. The idea was Project Grimm, which was basically about a skeleton going through purgatory. Scrap that idea, but you do still play as a skeleton. The game is called the Calcium Crusader in Boogietown. It is a game where you play as the Calcium Crusader, who died thousands of years ago, but since you've been dead, the whole world has been converted into a disco. So you have to boogie your way through this adventure. It's randomly generated, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I created this game in this video. I'm happy to announce I also have a guest who is appearing on this video, so stay tuned for that. That'll be a little bit later on. And at the end of this video, I'll be showcasing a little sneaky preview of a little bit I've been working on with Snow Way Back. So stay tuned for that, for a little bit of Snow Way Back. But in the meantime, we're going to be talking about the Calcium Crusader in Boogietown. So, the Calcium Crusader in Boogietown, how did I come up with this idea? As you may or may not know, I am creating a game called Snow Way Back. I'm solo developing it, and it's going really well. But aside from that, I thought to stop myself getting too overworked on the project, I'd just have 1 month away from it and just try something new. And just experiment with an idea that might go somewhere, you never know. So my idea was to complete this game and release it for Halloween 2022. So, to start off with, I had 3 goals that I wanted to have. I wanted to have a fun story, I wanted to have random generation, and I also wanted to have Halloween spooky themes in the game. So, goal number 1, what was the story? So, you were brought back from the dead in a world where the whole world has been converted into a disco. Why is this? You find out when you play through the game, and all the enemies that you face inspired by discos from the 70s and 80s. One of my concepts was the John Travolta Saturday Night Fever Strike a Pose. These disco monsters are called the Disco Demons, and you've got to watch out for them because they're all throughout the level, and every time you play through the levels, they're randomly placed, and every time you play through the game, you get a new layout, so you have to watch out for them. The second goal was to have random generation in my game. I've never personally done random generation code, so I thought it would be really fun to experiment and try out something new. So my initial idea was to create chunks of map that would be randomly selected to be placed in the level. It'd be a fun way to mix and match with jigsaw pieces that I create and put them on the map itself. So in the game, I also have NPCs who are humans who are stuck dancing because they can't stop discoing because they're in a disco world. So the random people you see in the game, they have random dialogue. So next time you play through the game, they might say something different, and they could help you out with some hints and tricks. So just look out for them if you do play the game. And on to the third goal. The third goal of my game was to have spooky themes in the game. So as I knew I was only going to be working on it throughout October, I thought the best way to do this would just to have as much Halloween theming as possible, because at the end of the day, I wanted the game to come out on Halloween Day 2022. And everything was going fine. All of the development was going really positively. I was having a great time. The day before Halloween, I had a corruption in my file, so I had to backtrack to try and figure out what went wrong and try and fix it before, obviously, the deadline that I set for myself. Once I got everything all sorted, everything in the game, I decided to add some random objects in the game that will show up from time to time. So this included some pumpkins that you find all throughout the levels, and some cobwebs as well, because I think the cobwebs adds a little bit more to the levels, which I thought was fun. So I did work on this game all by myself for the majority of the month, but then I did have some help from a certain someone, Dominic Beach, created all the music for the game. So all the music you find within the game was created by Dominic Beach, and he did an amazing job, and he's going to be working with me on Snow Way Back 2, which is perfect because he's very talented. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dominic to talk a little bit about the musical direction of the game.
Hey, I'm Dominic. and I'm the composer for the Calcium Crusader and Boogietown, and I wanted to share how I approach writing and producing the soundtrack. When I joined this project, Sam already had the vision of 80s disco, and I loved the idea. We discussed how the game would play and how it should feel for the player, and along with a few visuals, I began drafting up my first ideas. When working on electronic music, I usually start by creating a cliche mock-up in the relevant style. That way I can program and roughly mix the instruments first, so I know the sound of my track and the limitations I may face when writing for the ensemble. For the Calcium Crusader, I initially started producing a sound influenced more by French house, mixed with the Xbox 360 rhythm game, The Impossible Game. This didn't quite hit the miniature, cute arcade style I felt Calcium Crusader presented. Instead, I started to move towards a more retro-esque chiptune sound. The Calcium Crusader needed a little more time at the pre-production phase than usual. This is because every sound you hear in the music, from drums all the way to sound effects and the instruments, are custom automatable synth patches that I had personally created within Serum. Once I had programmed and produced the desired sound, I then moved on to the compositional process. The first struggle I hit was the blend between disco and chiptune. If I leant too far disco, I felt chiptune sounds couldn't really capture the funk element that disco needed. If I leant too far chiptune, however, then the boogie element of the disco would never come through, and that was the whole point of the game. I found the middle ground in the drums and the bass. The drum is a forward to the floor kick with an open hi-hat in the offbeat. And the bass is a very idiomatic disco bass line of a jumping octave pattern. That allows me then to slot the melody on top, and it has total freedom to do as it pleases, which is the sound that I was going for. Now, every composer has their own workflow and approach, and I personally like to start with harmonic language first. I try to work and personify the main themes of the game in the chord sequence, which I find can lead to some interesting choices and in turn, hopefully, a more interesting sound. To represent the darker aspect of the Calcium Crusader, I use the minor scale, A minor in this instance. I then plan to subvert the listener's expectations by hinting towards a typical dominant relationship, A minor to E major, but present a distant harmony instead. To do this whilst allowing for easy travel back to our home key in A minor and constant repeatability, I focused all the distant harmonies on the raised 7th degree of A minor, the G sharp. I begin with A minor and move towards an expected E major, but instead you receive a G sharp or A flat major. This is a sound that I can go between a lot to evoke this sort of we're the hero exploring a whole new world type of sound. I use the Lydian mode for the G sharp major, which I feel adds a little bit of something's not quite right. Whereas if I used the normal Ionian scale, you can hear how it sounds a little too refined and a little too rounded too. Then using the raised 7th, the G sharp, to bring the music back to A minor, I present the same scenario, A minor to E major, but instead branch off to F minor, with the A flat from the F minor, or spelled G sharp, being again our link back to A minor. This is a sound that actually I associate with something else. Early 2000s horror films. Tertiary modulations or changing key by a third is quite a common trope that's been present from film music and classical music for a long time. But I felt its effectiveness was really key in the early 2000s horror sound. And it's this sort of cliche, cheesy sound that I really wanted to use because it gives this cute, spooky vibe that I was really trying to hit. I go back to my A minor to G sharp modulation one more time before finally giving the listener what they were expecting and delivering a resolution to the whole phrase by going A minor to E major. Doing so ends the 8-bar phrase with a perfect cadence to go back and repeat for as long as you could need. I had a lot of fun writing the music for this and trying my best to program it in with C sharp, but I really do hope that you enjoyed the music and that it added to your experience playing the Calcium Crusader. If you did enjoy it, be sure to follow me on Instagram and on SoundCloud, where you can download the free soundtrack to the Calcium Crusader. And be sure to follow Sam for all the exciting projects that he puts out there.
A big thanks again to Dominic Beach for creating all of the amazing music you heard just then for the game. And don't forget to check out all of his stuff, and I'll link it in the description of this video. So overall, I really enjoyed this project. I thought it was really fun, and I hope you enjoy playing it too. Because it's randomly generated, you can play through it as many times as you want. Hopefully it doesn't get too dry. I hope you enjoy playing it. It's free, so can't complain. Unless you don't like the game, then you probably could complain. But I hope you do enjoy it if you do play it. Until the next one, I will showcase a little bit of Snow Way Back now. So sit back and put your coat on and enjoy the game. See you in a bit.